As a Feng Shui consultant, I have always been asked this question: how am I supposed to know if I'm engaging the right Feng Shui consultant for my house? Well, it's a very simple question with a very difficult answer, because this process is not really that straightforward process. But however, I can share with you 4 tips to help you narrow down the number of consultants wherever you are in this part of the world. Okay? Now, to understand the first tip, first let's look at the meaning of Feng Shui. The word Feng Shui is derived from this book, the classic book called the Book of Burial. And in this book, or classic, that the word Feng Shui has been coined. And in this whole book, entirely if you read it, basically it says that the sources of energy or qi comes from 2 distinct sources. One is water and the other is mountain, or in a Feng Shui jargon is called the dragons. So Feng Shui is all about energy, and this energy comes from these 2 sources of the mountains and waters. So collectively we call it land formations. So with this understanding, you will know that immediately you can eliminate a lot of non-Feng Shui related, for example, item placement. Is item placement a real Feng Shui method? Does the item emit qi? Does it give source of energy? It doesn't. Perhaps it does give some psychological comfort, but it doesn't really give energy per se. So therefore, anything that deals with item placement is not regarded as classical Feng Shui. They are neither Feng Shui at all. They are just probably color therapies, psychological therapy methodologies. Then there are some practitioners who are involved in religious or spiritual practices as well. Now these are not to be mixed with Feng Shui practice. It could be something that they take it up as their personal development or personal preference or their way of life. But they are distinctively different from the field of Feng Shui. Now why do I say this? Now this is very evident if you have read about the Chinese 5 arts. Chinese classify their 5 arts into mountain arts, physiognomy art, divination art, astrology art, and finally medicine art. So all these arts centered around the usage of 5 elements and yin yang. But they have 5 different classifications when it comes to application. So spirituality, it belongs to the category of mountains, right? Feng Shui belongs to the category of physiognomy, the same category as your face reading and palmistry. Then Bazi astrology or purple star astrology comes under astrology. Medicine is Chinese medicine, right? That's very clear. And finally, the other one is divination. Things like, for example, turtle shell divination, yarrow stick divination, Qimen Tunjia, these are all under divination subject. So if you look at this, many thousand years ago, they have already classified the arts into their own distinct categories. So Feng Shui is Feng Shui, is under physiognomy. Of course, you can take up other arts. But what I'm trying to say here is that these arts have been clearly classified. Taking up another art is just like having another subject in your university studies. Right? So with this understanding, you can already eliminate some percentage of Feng Shui consultants that is available in your list. Okay, now let's look at tip number 2. Alright, now the second tip is this has got to do with this word called lineage or lineage, whichever way you pronounce it. But basically what it means is that there is a transfer of knowledge down the generations from grandmasters to their students. Now why this is important in Feng Shui? Because we are dealing with energy, and these are energy that we cannot taste, we cannot smell, we cannot feel it, we cannot hear it, and we cannot measure it with any known scientific gadget as of today. Therefore, a lineage is a kind of assurance, kind of quality assurance that the knowledge that has been transferred down has been proven, is authentic, is correct, and the experience has to be transferred down so that it cuts short the students' learning curve. Now, the problem is today is that since the millennium, thousands and thousands of consultants are being churned out every day, every month, throughout the world. And this gives rise to the problem as to why the origin of this question is because they have suffered some kind of bad effects from the incompetency of these Feng Shui consultants. Now, why are they incompetent? The problem is that most of these students have learned it from their masters who are self-learned masters. So self-learned masters, basically what they do is that they buy books, they read it, they interpret the sentences in the books, and they come up with their own syllabus with some good marketing, and they start selling courses. So there comes a lot of deficiency because number one, what is written in the book you cannot tell is correct or wrong because not all books is telling you the right thing. And even if you read the sentence in the book, how would you show that your interpretation is correct? Because there are no masters to tell you or to guide the person as if what he read or what he understood is correct or otherwise. And thirdly is that Feng Shui is an art that most of it is being transferred down through orally, meaning the masters will explain the techniques and the fine details to the students. Not everything is written down clearly in the books. Therefore, this is also one part that they self-learned masters will not have. So through their own imagination, they decide what is written in the book or in the classics. So through their own lenses, their limited lenses, they believe this is the way to do it. But in their lifetime of 10, 20 years, how many cases can they verify? So therefore, this becomes a danger, becomes a liability. And that's the reason why this question was posed to me very often. Because they have suffered some kind of bad effects. So, lineage masters usually, they will acknowledge their masters. They will acknowledge who is their master and who is their grandmasters, for example. But most masters today outside, they will never acknowledge who their masters are, simply because they do not want you to know their source of their knowledge. Because by the time you know the source of their knowledge, then you will know that, he is a self-learned master. So it's the same. You ask yourself this question: do you want to visit a dentist who learned dentistry from YouTube? So there is the danger, right? So in this digital world, in this very modern marketing world, marketing has gone to a very high level of sophistication, and therefore sometimes it creates a lot of disillusion in the industry as well. Then the third tip that I can offer you is watch out for this thing called mix and match. What do I mean by mix and match? Most Feng Shui consultants will tell you that I have many methods. I know many methods under my belt. So the general perception to most common people are that the better it is if I have more methods or more tools, because I will have more options. But unfortunately, this concept does not apply in Feng Shui, because it only leads you to confusion instead of having more options, right? It's going to confuse both the consultant as well as the client. Now, why do I say that? Okay, let's give you a simple scenario. When the person is learning, he sees house number 1 is doing well. So he tried to use method A to explain house number 1. Yeah, maybe it does explain house number 1. Then he sees house number 2. And method B explains why exactly this house number 2 is bad. And he goes on to house number 3 and says that, method C actually explains very well why this family is having health issues. Fine. You got your certificate, you goes out, put out a big advertisement, brand yourself well, and then here's a guy who comes in and says, hey look, I have a new house. Can you feng shui my house? So what goes on next in this consultant's head? So which method should I deploy to feng shui my client's house? Method A, method B, or method C? What if method A says it's good, but method C says no, it's bad? So which method are you going to deploy? So here's the problem. So probably you'll be doing a little bit of mix and match. 20% of A, 20% of B, and the rest of it C. So as a client, do you want a consultant who himself is confused? One moment he says this is good, and another moment he says this is bad. Because probably in his mind there were 2 methods going on. So which am I going to choose? Is he going to play a guessing game? Well, it's up to the client to decide. So in Feng Shui, it's not about having more methods, the better. This is a very common mistake that most clients have in mind when they do their selection. As a result, they come back and ask me this question: well, how am I supposed to know if this is the right consultant? Because in the early stage, in the selection stage, they thought the more the merrier. But unfortunately, in Feng Shui, it doesn't work this way. So I hope this tip will give you some idea that mix matching actually is very dangerous. The more method does not mean necessarily it's good in Feng Shui industry. Okay, it may apply very well in other industry, but it does not apply very well in Feng Shui. Okay, so now this leads us to tip number 4. And tip number 4 says, differentiate between breadth versus depth. Breadth is like having many methods under your belt, but each of them at a superficial level deep. Maybe incorrect. But depth is something very unique, and this should be the thing in Feng Shui. Now what I mean by depth here, by depth I mean that one method to explain house number 1, house number 2, house number 3, the events in the house, whether it's going to be good, it's going to be bad, it's going to have health issues. It's one method, one system to explain all houses. And you can only do this, or you can only achieve this when you have the authentic knowledge that comes from the lineage, the real lineage, not the fake lineage, but real lineage. right? And through in-depth understanding of what Feng Shui is, an in-depth understanding of the methodology of the school, the method that the school deploys. That's why if you are able to explain method 1, 2, and house 1, 2, and 3 using the same method, then while producing the fourth result for the new client is highly achievable. Makes sense, right? Think about it. What we want in Feng Shui is depth, it's not breadth. Having breadth is like you're going to a doctor, that's a general practitioner. But if you have a serious eye problem, probably an eye specialist is a better choice. And an eye specialist is like a person who is very in-depth into the study of the human eyes. So this is a similar logic in Feng Shui when it comes to Feng Shui. So look for a consultant that has depth but not breadth. Because breadth sounds good, but it doesn't taste good. Okay, so I hope with this I can have given you a good idea of how to differentiate between breadth and depth. So a clue would be coming from the methods. How many methods does she knows or she practices? Or how many methods does the school teaches if the consultant is teaching, is having a school? Then it's a very easy way to tell, right? Because Feng Shui has many schools. You have Sanhe School, San Yuan School, and many methods. So you need to understand where this consultant is coming from. Okay? There you go. So I hope you have enjoyed this short video clip on about 4 tips on how to narrow down your Feng Shui consultant selection. So until the next clip, I say goodbye. Thank you for watching.